Hello and welcome to the season finale of the Extreme Cinema Podcast. I'm Alexander Sternberg and with me as ever is Dom Loach. How you been, Dom?
I am amazing, Sterny. How are you doing?
I'm very good, and this is the film... We couldn't end on snuff. We just couldn't. That couldn't be the last episode.
No, Snuff could not have been the last thing we talked about because that was something else. It had to be something we actually adore and needed to talk about.
Not only adore, but we both share a similar hot take on this, in that this is... our film today is Lords of Chaos, the biopic about the band Mayhem, and we both think this is underrated in the literal sense, as in people don't rate this high enough, so we're going to be mounting a pretty staunch defense of this movie today.
Oh yeah, massively. So underrated on a stupid level. I could not stop thinking about this movie for a while, and obviously it's in a subject we have a lot of views on. It's a music that we acquire into, me a lot more than you, but it's very underrated, and we're gonna talk about why, basically, and how it really should be more rated.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the reaction to this film was absolutely bloody insane, and we'll get more into the reaction later on, but critically it was fairly middling reviews. There were a few good reviews, but mainly sort of, it's a fine film.
Yeah.
Fans of Mayhem fucking hated it for dumb reasons, which we'll get into. One of the people depicted in this film really hated it for even stupider reasons, which we will get to. We'll do a long section on Varg in this, because if you don't know about the story behind the band Mayhem, it's like the craziest thing to ever happen in music ever.
Yeah, so we don't usually go through events in films and stuff, but I feel like with this we're just gonna have to talk about certain things throughout it, because this is a biopic. This shit really happened. This is insane.
I mean, the film starts with based on truth and lies and what really happened, and some have questioned the historical accuracy of the film, and there are obviously certain things in this that probably are in there because it's a movie and you've got to hit certain dramatic beats.
Yeah, exactly.
But realistically, the main few things in this film, the really big moments, all actually happened. And I remember when we went into this, you were like, because you knew a lot more about this than I did, you were like, I don't even know what they're going to go up to in the story of Mayhem. Are they just going to leave it at dead lead singer, or are they going to go up to the most famous thing to ever happen in black metal, where the bassist of the band killed the guitarist?
Well, yeah, that was it. I didn't know if it was going to be Dead Story, which it did seem like it was going to be for a while, or if it was going to be all of Euronymous' life, which is what it turned out to be, with... It ends with Euronymous getting killed by Varg. But,
It's an amazing depiction and deconstruction of the whole scene, the whole Mayhem lore. And I think the primary reason it's so interesting intellectually and it's so thematically on point is the director, Jonas, Åkerlund, who, the top review on Letterboxd for a while said this film did not care about black metal. The dude who directed this was the drummer in Bathory for a bit.
Yeah.
He cared.
It was him.
He was in the scene. This is probably a very accurate depiction of these band members, and people didn't like seeing that.
Well, that's the thing. I will be rebuking this heavily later, going through the history and stuff, because I know quite a bit about black metal. This guy was in basically the Fourth Fathers. Mayhem were technically second wave. Bathory, first wave. This guy knew fucking black metal.
I mean, I had a listen to the first Bathory EP before doing this, and I was just like, this is nuts. This is too much for me. This is absolute crazy music. And for 1984, he was the drummer in such a forefront band, and then left the band to direct music videos. He directed stuff for Madonna, for U2, Smashing Pumpkins, Blink, Rammstein. He's not a nobody. And he really brought that style from the music videos into this film because just before we get into the writing and anything like that, the film looks gorgeous.
Oh my god, yeah. Like, it looks incredible. It has that beautiful, like, gritty sense to it as well in the scenes that need to feel like that. Like,
Absolutely.
and the church burning scenes. I mean, oh my god. Some of those shots are unreal.
It has the grit, but it has the style as well, and the lighting is amazing, and I couldn't find any details somehow about what format the film was shot in, but it looks like film. It looks like possibly even 16 that's been blown up. Like, it looks gorgeous, and I think a perfect way, bit of the directing for me is when you see that first live Mayhem show where Dead's cutting himself, and the live show is like, it's the myth of Mayhem. This is the most evil, fucked up band in the world. It's all that. It's shot, the lighting, the strobe, the editing, and then it cuts to them afterward. And he's, the lead singer of this band cut himself on stage deliberately. He was not in good shape afterward, and then it shows it in a really gritty way that he's sitting while they're getting shawarma, and he looks like he's very seriously injured himself and is in a very bad way. And that, like, edit is so good, but it also shows the way Åkerlund can do both the, fun biopic and the grit and the more realistic aspect of it.
Yeah, no, that edit you just talked about is one of my 2 favorite edits of all time that I always talk about. Just because it's
fucking hell.
It's so genius. Like, the way that it goes from, like you said, like, Dead just cutting himself on stage. Like, it's brutal and it's horrible, but it's like this. Oh, how cool was this though? Like, he's throwing Pig's head in the audience onto the posers and is like all black metal, and then it just cuts and Euronymous is just looking at him and he's so fucked up. Like, he's just like, are you okay? And he's like, no. Like, it's genius. Like,
it's thematically so on point because a big idea in this, and this is something that the black metal fans, the purists, and they're probably the worst metal fans out there, just didn't like seeing, is one of the major themes in this is the contrast between the myth of the band that was created and reality and who these people really were. I mean, like, what I really like about it is the first 5-10 minutes of this are, your biopic. It's like, we had this drummer, he quit, here's how we found the singer, here's the guitar tuning we used, here's fucking, one of our songs, Death Crush, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Death Crush. And, like, it's good, and it's fine. It's a really good beginning to a film, and this came out during the biopic mania of, Bohemian Rhapsody, whatever that Motley Crue one was called, the Elton John one. But then after that sort of opening 10-15 minutes, it becomes a much more poignant, serious, fun, but still a much more interesting film about a relationship between Varg and Euronymous, and a much more interesting film about sort of toxic masculinity and these sort of overgrown man-children, basically, in a very unflattering, unbiopic-y way.
Well, yeah, that's exactly the thing, isn't it? And that's, like you said, what pissed a lot of these Mayhem fans off, who are just horrific people in their own right, who see no irony in any of this shit. Like it's because they saw these people as people, and like, they did horrible, horrific, just the worst things, and we're also just like man-children, most of them. Like, what is it?
They were lame as
what is it?
Hell.
The reporter says about Varg. Like, that's the stupidest motherfucker.
The biggest fucking idiot I've ever met in my life, which is absolutely true, as we know from everything Varg has ever said online.
Yeah. So you're a Nazi and a paganist and a Christian, like or whatever it is.
No, it's a Nazi, paganist, Satanist.
Satanist. And he goes, sorry.
That's hard for a mere journalist to understand. He's like, yeah, it is. It's the theming is so on point with the film. Like, everything really reinforces what they're trying to say about the whole black metal scene, about Mayhem, about Euronymous and Varg as people, is that this is how they viewed masculinity, as being like evil, essentially, or what they thought of evil, saying the most kind of stupidly over the top shit about the church and whatnot. You know, whatever truth there is in what they're saying it in a very theatrical, stupid way, and how that like facade just became more and more real and more unstoppable. And there's so many good moments with Euronymous and Varg trying to one up each other, but it's not just like anything you can do, I can do better. It's like you can see the internal dilemma within Euronymous about, I invented this whole marketing shtick and now it's taken over my life. And also you can see Varg like properly buying into what is bollocks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember seeing like Loudwire put it in some top 10 cringy rock and metal moments or something, and they put the scene where they're in a cafe and he's like, you know, I invented black metal, true Norwegian black metal. I think a big joke of the film is that that's a nonsense thing to say. And then Varg's like, and now you betray it. And that's only cringe if you take it completely out of context of the whole film, because it's meant to be cringe.
Exactly.
It's meant to be these people are cringy fucking people.
Like, the entire point is these people are cringy. Like, obviously it shows its hand so much towards the end with Euronymous. Like, where it's the whole, the necklaces weren't real and everything like that. Like, it shows you that, like, this was all just a facade of creating this whole, like, strong masculine black metal thing. Like,
one of the smartest storytelling decisions in it for me is when you get dead suicide. So the first time you see it, you've got the black metal myth of it. Like, Euronymous saw him, you know, his friend, lead singer, suicide, and went to buy camera and took photos of it and was like, we'll put this on the album cover, we'll be famous. But then halfway through the film, it cuts back after you see he's got like PTSD from it. It cuts back and he actually bursts into tears when he saw dead. And, you know, do we know if that's true? Who knows? But thematically and what the film's trying to say, it's so pointed that this myth is absolutely not only nonsense, but it's built on something that was ultimately really destructive for the band members.
Exactly. I think that's why we love it so much. It's like, because people will be like, oh, maybe that's not true though. And I'm like, but how much more interesting is it if it is? Like, it's so much more interesting and so much more pointed if it did actually break down and stuff, instead of just taking a picture and putting it on the front cover. Like, because obviously we know, yes, a picture was taken and it was put on as the front cover of a Mayhem album.
It's true, and I mean, like, again, a thing I'll say is probably didn't happen, but it's good thematically, is sort of at the end when he's cutting his hair and whatnot. Like, that would be a very coincidental thing to happen shortly before he's murdered, but thematically it works and it's a good image. And I also really like when, you know, after he's gotten together with his girlfriend, how she's wiping the corpse paint off his face. Like, he's got a place to put this, like, pent-up energy in that he hasn't been able to and has been sort of actively taken away. Like, another really good moment is when he goes back to the, like, basement of the record shop with her and Varg, and he wants to go upstairs with her, and Varg's is like, no, take off your clothes and sit down here, like, you are an object for us.
Yeah.
And Euronymous just acquiesces, because, like, well, I can't show myself to be less fucked up than he is, can I?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, they all had to show that they were the most fucked up. It's like that black circle, isn't it, that they created. And I love how it's not just a Mayhem. I know Mayhem is intrinsically linked with all of black metal, but it's literally a black metal biopic, basically.
But you got the dude from Emperor who
Faust.
killed somebody.
Faust, yeah.
Faust. And I like how these things aren't portrayed as good or cool. I think the Mayhem fans wanted, yeah, church burnings, how sick. This is the most evil band in the world. And in reality, it might start out a bit like that, but then when it gets to the end, you just realize it's sad.
Well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? And that's what annoyed so many people, where it's like, oh, this is actually kind of sad. It's not this cool myth that we all believed about. Like, I just like the music. I never loved the fucking church burning or anything like that. I just genuinely like.
Well, people who actually love Mayhem and Varg as people are weird.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of walking outside your house with a Burzum shirt on just is intrinsically so, like, ooh to me.
That's the thing. I've seen so many Burzum shirts in, like, at festivals and stuff, and I'm like, do they know? Or have they just heard Burzum? Like,
You can't not know. You can't be so deep into metal that you like Burzum and not know it's a one-man project by a Nazi. They probably find it cool. I think a lot of people like this. Like, look how edgy it all is. Like, when I was researching this, Faust got put back in Emperor after serving a sentence for murder. Like,
yeah.
you know, and I can see the kind of, oh, how sick and evil is this, am I right? But it's kind of just a bit lame.
Well, Faust.
Like, maybe if I was 17, I'd say, oh, look, this band has the drummer that killed someone for no reason or because he was gay or whatever.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's because the guy was gay as well, which is even more horrific.
Yeah. One scene I really like in the film is after one of the first church burnings with Varg and Euronymous when they're singing Am I Evil? I mean, like, that's how they view themselves. And the next line in that song, which is not in the edit, I don't know if it was cut because it was too on the nose, it was cut for pacing issues, or they didn't film it because they weren't thinking this, and it's just me reading into it too much. But the next line of that song is, Am I evil? I am man.
I am man, yeah.
And I'm pretty bloody sure, like, that's what they're going for in this. That's what they think they're meant to do. That's where they're putting all their kind of teenage energy, because one of the things in the film, the kind of contrast between their music and the way they choose to live, is that they're all, you know, it makes a big deal that Norway was pretty stable at the time, and they're all coming from sort of upper middle class backgrounds. Like, his dad buys him a record shop and whatnot, and yet he's building this persona of being this sick, twisted individual.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's an amazing film, right, Stanley? Like, it's hard to get across, like, because you'll look up reviews of this and it'll be a lot of normal film reviewers who know nothing about the subject and are either just like, oh yeah, this is fine, or you'll see a review from somebody who's too into the subject and is like, oh, this is too out there, like, we don't know all this stuff. Like,
I mean, this was a kind of, it's been forgotten. I do hope this is going to be looked back on favorably, but like, we saw it got pushed to the tiny screen in a very large view, so that's how kind of small it was. And we saw it in an audience of a good few people, and no one was getting it, because it's really quite funny at points, and there was just no laughter. And because it was kind of marketed a bit like a horror film, especially with the poster, I was like, what did these people think they were coming to see?
That's nobody left, which I'm surprised. Everybody did stick it out, and they weren't like talking or being noisy around us or anything, but like, you could just pick up the vibe that nobody really knew what the hell they were watching except me and you. Like,
we came out of that sort of loving it, and it gets better on rewatch because you realize how it is a very clever film. It's very intelligent in what it's trying to say, how it's trying to portray the scene, how it's trying to portray these characters, and it does it very intelligently.
Yeah, I think that's such a big thing, that this movie is so clever, and going into it, I didn't expect it to be at all. Like, I thought it was just going to be a straight up tell what happened with Mayhem, like, put them up there.
Yeah, because you got a perfectly fine film just doing what happened with Mayhem, no introspection here. You'd come out with a perfectly alright
Exactly.
film.
Well, that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like that telling of the legend of Mayhem, like these cool friggin' legends of black metal that did crazy shit and stabbed each other and stuff like this. But no, there's so much more to this movie.
And it's really kind of depressing because they are all smart people in it. Like, they're all portrayed as, like, not idiots, nothing like that. And they're just going down this complete rabbit hole that they've created. Like, Euronymous is very sympathetic character in this, and this might be one of the things that's not entirely accurate, but is there to make the movie a movie, is that Euronymous is probably a lot less sympathetic in real life.
Well, yeah. Euronymous was a horrible person, apparently. Apparently, the only person that wasn't basically was dead. But he was just like,
Yeah.
morbidly depressed, obviously. Like,
He was like actually, yeah, just very tragic because, I mean, I don't really like black metal. We'll probably get into actually the band like at the end of it, but I like a lot of stuff that is inspired by it, but not the genre itself. But like that first EP, which has Dead and Euronymous on it, amazing record.
Yeah.
That like it's only a few tracks. It's just so raw and listenable.
I mean, how many times have me and you talked about if Dead and Euronymous had survived, they'd have changed music so much, even more so.
Mayhem might be a band I like if that was the case.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They were the talented ones, and we've said this before. I listened to Burzum assuming I was gonna go like, oh fuck Varg, obviously, but like it's good because everyone likes it. And I just went back to you and was like, it's rubbish.
Yeah, I've always told you Burzum's not great as well. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand it. Well, I do understand it. It's what you said. They like to say they like it because it's an edgy thing to say. Like, should we talk about Varg? Like.
I think before Varg, I think just to put in a couple of criticisms because there's a good way of going into that.
Yeah.
Because I will give the fair thing. One, the supporting performance, the lead performances, which I'll talk about after the criticisms, are really good, but the supporting performances can be pretty awful.
Yeah, most of the other band members and stuff are not great at all.
Dead's pretty good, but like
Dead's good.
Necrobutcher is briefly in it, doesn't believe a single thing he's saying. Some of the people in the Black Circle aren't. Just some of like their parents when they say like dinner's ready or something. I'm like, that's the best take you got of the line. Euronymous' girlfriend, who probably didn't exist, is awful.
Yeah.
Sorry. And there is a criticism the black metal purists make, which I think holds some merit, is that the fact they're speaking English. I mean, yeah, it's weird. It's set in Norway. It's a very Norwegian band. They all have the most, Scandinavian names, and they're all speaking English, which, yeah, I guess it's not great. I mean, it's not going to affect my overall rating of the film, but fair enough. Yeah. It is a bit of an Americanization of it.
That's the thing. Like, I guess they'd have then had to find friggin' Norwegian actors to play them and stuff, and they just couldn't be asked. But, like...
And also, you'd find it harder to get a movie in a foreign language made, especially if you're targeting at younger people, which I think this film
That's
was.
The thing.
And also, Sigur Rós did the score, and I only realized it was Sigur Rós today or yesterday when I was watching the credits of this. It's perfectly all right, like nothing wrong with it, but I'd expect more from them. I'm sure they really wanted to do a Mayhem biopic, but it's not up to their quality. I'd say.
I knew it was Sigur Rós, but it's not massively noticeable, especially for a Mayhem biopic. So like,
soundtrack's rad.
Oh well, yeah, soundtrack's
all the
amazing.
early metal bands.
Yeah, it's literally. I mean, a lot of it is set in a metal record store, so you get a lot of references to all of them.
You can tell Åkerlund or the set designer, whoever, really cared about what albums are on display, because every time they go into the shop, new albums are front and center in the frame.
Yes.
It's a nice little trivia game. Try and work out what it is.
I do love the bit where they meet and they pick up like Poison or something like that, and they pull a face at it. Like, love that point. Like...
But the lead actors are great. Like Rory Culkin is so subtle and good as Euronymous, and you really feel for him, and he's building this sort of facade that you can really see like behind his eyes what is really happening. There's a lot of cuts back to him which might seem pointless, but it's like you can see the reality of who he is going less and less and more at certain points. And one of the things I love in the script is the attention to detail of if they're calling him his real name, if they're calling him Euronymous, if they're calling Varg Christian or Varg or the Count or whatnot. Like, it's very meaningful. It's very deliberate choices in that.
Yeah, definitely. I love you can tell who thinks what about Varg by what they call him. Like, that was something I wanted to say.
But also Emery Cohen, because one fang a lot of fans who hate the film, a lot of like music fans who don't like the film really like, is chubby Jewish Varg.
Yeah.
Because it didn't even occur to me the first time I watched this until I saw Varg's rambling 7-part review on this, that Emery Cohen is Jewish and Varg is a Nazi. But the more people keep bringing up chubby Jewish Varg, I'm like, it was entirely intentional.
Oh.
Because also Varg was way more handsome in real life than the way they make the character up to be. They don't like this dude. I mean, one of the most unlikable dudes in all of music ever.
Well,
and it's great.
exactly. You can tell the film loves Euronymous and hates Varg. So, like, and that's coming from somebody who was in black metal, so was clearly like, you fucking killed one of our greatest. Like, that's so, like, you can just tell that.
I mean, Åkerlund would have presumably known all of these people personally.
Oh, absolutely, will have, yeah.
Like, Varg's 7-part rambling review on this, where he starts out by saying, I don't care, and then goes on a weirdly edited 7-part review. I mean, Varg, internet troll, the infamous bassist from Mayhem who killed the guitarist, gets out of prison after 20 years and becomes an internet troll. It's bizarre.
It's the most insane thing. I've not seen his review of Lords of Chaos because I refuse to interact with any Varg stuff at all.
Varg's channel, like, think of all the awful, terrible white supremacists, etc., who are on YouTube. Varg's channel got taken down. That's how batshit he is. I went down a rabbit hole of looking at his videos. He clearly has something wrong with him because he doesn't speak. He speaks incomprehensibly. Like, if I want a good laugh, I check his Twitter feed because it's impossible to decipher what he's saying. From what I can gather, he seems to believe that Christianity was a conspiracy by the Jews so that nearly 2,000 years after Christianity was created, Hitler would come to power and then the Allies-Jews could bomb Europe. I don't...
That's incredible. Like, that's the...
It's more than galaxy brain, Nat. I mean...
That's Varg brain right there,
like, he doesn't speak... He speaks just incomprehensibly. It's hard to tell. I mean, he's just openly anti-Semitic. He's openly an awful person. He doesn't couch what he says behind dog whistles. His Twitter is absolute nuts. Like, he tweets all these weird memes that you're like, you can't believe this, but I think he does. But he's clearly a troll. Like, he clearly knows he's getting a rise out of people. I mean, actual crazy man. And, like, he had 250,000 subscribers on his channel before it got down. He was a very known part of sort of the Nazi white supremacist end of YouTube. He wasn't a joke to them.
No, exactly. He was massively big in that, like, saying exactly what they wanted to say. Because he just didn't care. I mean, this man used to fucking burn down churches, for God's sake. Like, which is something I bet a lot of people will have heard of, even if they know nothing about black metal or these people, because it was very big news at the time. Like, the church burnings that were happening all of the Scandinavian countries.
It's not like historic churches as well. Like, it wasn't a joke. They did some pretty shitty stuff.
Oh, yeah. Like horrifically dangerous, life-threatening. Like, oh, well, obviously, he fucking killed Euronymous. But, like...
like, a bit more than that. But, like his rambling review, the first criticism he has, which goes on for a while, is that he's played by a Jew and he's not Jewish. He then... And it was so weirdly edited. I have no idea if anyone will be able to find this anymore. Because he edits weird classical music interludes in his points, so it goes on forever. He had some things about actually what happened and whatnot, where he's a biased source. He says Euronymous' girlfriend didn't exist, and I'm sure that's true. It sounds it sounds about right. But he's like, I don't care about the film, and went going on this sort of long tangent about how it's disrespectful to him and black metal in general. And again, this idea of the film having contempt for the genre. And it doesn't have contempt for the genre. It's got a lot of literal introspection for how these people were when they were fucking 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Yeah, well, I think it's just somebody who's known all these people and come from this thing himself, having introspection on the background that he came from, Like, that's why it's so fucking clever. Like,
It's true, and it there's so much detail in the way it depicts the scene and the costumes and the sets and the posters. Like it's made with, I don't want to say love, but it's made with a real artistic intent, and it's made to really say something about, let's be real, what might be infamous, but it's a fairly niche bit of music. I mean, like, of all the genres of metal, black metal is one of the most infamous. It's one of the least actually listened to.
yeah, like a lot of people think black metal is a bit of a joke, but I quite love black metal, and but I'm quite third wave, like new wave black metal, whereas like
Behemoth and whatnot.
yeah, Behemoth and that kind of stuff. Mayhem are in the like weird. The thing is, Mayhem were like the created the corpse paint look and all of that stuff, and like had some incredible songs, but I don't quite listen to them on like the daily kind of thing. Like,
I really admire a lot of the things that took influence off black metal. I know Sonic Youth, in some of their really noisy 90s stuff, definitely did. I went to Thurston Moore's record shop in Stoke Newington, like, just before the pandemic, and they had a photo of Dead up on the wall and stuff.
Yeah.
The Zealand Ardor, which I've really not liked the new stuff. But their first album, which is like black metal and blues, it's such a conceptually interesting piece of music, taking a genre mostly associated with white supremacy and anti-Christian and putting it to a genre of black music that was intensely Christian. I think it's such a conceptually rich idea. I could really talk a bit about it. I almost wrote an essay on it, but I didn't for various reasons. Like, it's about black radicalism and whatnot, and it's great. I like Chelsea Wolfe a lot. Some of the like folky stuff that's coming out now, like Chelsea Wolfe and Emma Ruth Rundle and whatnot, have definitely some very thematic roots in black metal, even if they sound nothing like it. I like all that stuff.
And then I'd have to talk about bands like Myrica and Alcest and Death Heaven and such.
Oh, I love Alcest. Alcest were great.
Yeah.
I saw them at Download while you were off with Lamb of God or something, and it was captivating.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this, it did create an incredible, like, it's almost like this is about the like weird birth of it, with like the horrible shit that happened that then now became amazing things. Like, but you've got to get through the weird mayhem, like the weird mayhem area of them just being horrific people. Like,
it's true, and one thing, and I know Mayhem have absolute diehard fans out there, and I'm just it's too out there and extreme for me, so maybe there is stuff I'm not getting. I appreciate some of the distortion and whatnot in the music and how it sounds, and sonically it's very boundary pushing, but like, if they had just not done all this stupid shit and had focused a lot more on the music, at least this is what this film says. I'm now going out on not really knowing about the actual history and whatnot, so the film may not have shown how dedicated they were to their art form, but the film kind of shows it as secondary to the image they're putting in. Like, there's very little stuff in a recording studio in the film.
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I think there's just the one scene, isn't there?
There's one scene of Mayhem and one scene of Burzum.
And one scene of Burzum, yeah.
Which is a good because there's like Bohemian Rhapsody, that film, which I hate. It's average is best, but it's like every other scene. It's, hey, we're in the recording studio and I've got a great idea for a song. Stamp your feet twice and clap, and it's like, oh my god, you've genius. And they have them like 10 times in that film. They never go, I've got a guitar riff, here you go. They briefly go, and I tuned my guitar like this, and then they play a song in the first 5 minutes just to get all the biopic beats out. It's a really good way of doing it and making a much more engaging film.
All I'm gonna say is Freezing Moon is a fucking bop, though. Like, I love Freezing Moon.
I think my favorite reaction to this film comes from Necrobutcher, who is the bassist in the band Prevarg, and accurately in the film to reality, the second Dead dies and they take the photo of Dead, he's like, I'm out.
Yeah, Necrobutcher.
And he's nuts. Like, I saw it, there's Sam Dunn's documentary, he catches Necrobutcher backstage and he's nuts. Like he is also crazy, but he was just the least crazy in Mayhem.
Yeah, it's like that where it's like, don't get us wrong, this guy's insane, but like,
and he really, because this is based off a book. And in the interview, it's like a GQ thing, like Necrobutcher breaks down. Okay, it might not have been like breaks down Laws of Chaos, but it was some interview with him, and there's 15 minutes on it. And he said when they came to him with the film, if he wanted to be involved, he told them absolutely not, because the book that it's based on uses that image of dead, and he's very against it, and consistently refers to him as the photo of my friend suicide. Correctly, you know, he's clearly still very affected by this, as the film shows Euronymous to be when it starts to kind of go back on itself and show how it's all an image and whatnot. But he says, like, I don't care, etc., trying to, you know, all cool and whatnot. But then he's like, I watched it and it was very affecting and it brought a lot of things back to me. And I thought it was a very telling review of it, that it's someone who just didn't want to care about this film, didn't go into any kind of analysis. He just said it was affecting and it brought things back to him of what really happened.
Yeah, exactly. Like, which, I mean, could be like the greatest review ever, really. If somebody who was actually there doing all of this and was there is like, this brought things back, is like insane. Like,
it's true. I mean, you know, it's not the same thing, but like you hear of, you know, veterans went to see Saving Private Ryan and had to leave because it was triggering, like, you know, and this is also a person who is still got that facade up, clearly. I mean, you see in the Sam documentary where he tries to interview Necrobutcher and he tells him, fuck you, at one point, and I think spits a drink out on him. Like, he's still got this facade up that the film is talking about, but he looks very emotional when talking about the film and the experiences of early Mayhem.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him just saying it's sad, didn't he, basically? Like, yeah.
It is
which
sad.
Yeah, it is. Like, imagine living through that stuff and still being alive now. Like, he had to see 2 of his friends die and stuff. Like,
yeah. And, like, famously, I mean, I don't want to like dwell on Varg being evil and whatnot, but like famously he smiled when given 21 years in jail, which is the longest term in Norwegian prison. You know, it's not cool. It's just, and the film shows him as so lame. Like, that scene with the journalist is one of my favorite scenes ever. It's hysterically funny. It's hysterically
that's
funny.
Like such the like calling card of this film, that bit with the journalist where it's just like, what a fucking idiot. Like, because yes, like,
what a fucking idiot. Another great line in it is when Varg's like, we got to take this to the next level, and Euronymous is like, the next level is jail.
Yeah, I know.
It's amazing that you, like, when Fels, like, tells Euronymous that he killed someone, and he's, like, shocked and horrified, but then when he's going to see, like, the Black Circle outside the Motorhead show, he's like, you know, he did it, it's cool, like, we did it under my instructions and stuff. It's a very nuanced film. It's a very great character study of Euronymous and a very good study of Varg and Euronymous' relationship, and a very good film about sort of toxic masculinity that's done in a really sensitive way, and a great movie about metal and music and whatnot. Go watch it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, I bet a lot of people didn't watch this because they're like, oh, a film about black metal. Like, well, I'm not interested in that. I'll not watch this. It is about that, but it's so much more.
It's just a good movie. And, like, I mean, it's on the Extreme Cinema podcast. I mean, 2 minutes of it, it's pretty brutal, especially the murder of Euronymous. 2 minutes were cut in the US for an R rating, which is, considering while America is super weird about sex, they're very lenient towards violence. So that does tell you something. Like, dead suicide scene, it's horrible to watch. Peter Bradshaw in his Guardian review kind of implies that he found the level of sort of graphic depictions in the film of various incidents. He did kind of imply that it held the movie back for him, and he wrote a pretty positive 3-star review of the film.
That's fair enough. I mean, I could see people feeling that way, especially with dead suicide. It is fucking brutal, that part. But it's a fucking Mayhem biopic
So,
at the end
that's
of the day.
thing.
I mean,
It had to be like this. Like, you wouldn't want something toned down. I think in the context of a Mayhem biopic, I don't find anything in this exploitative, because it's so sensitive. And I really think sensitive is the best way of describing the film. It's not, ooh, look how edgy it is. It might sort of start out with the style of that, but it very quickly turns back on itself. It's very quickly introspective about the film and the scene and the story. Because, I mean, it's a kind of worms we probably can't get into, and I would have done more research if I was going to talk about it more in depth. But, like, suicide on film is a very difficult subject to broach. I mean, I never watched it, but 13 Reasons Why was obviously insanely controversial for that reason, and they cut that scene out.
Yeah, I saw the cut before it happened because I'd watched it all and saw it before it was cut out. That was brutal. That was horrific. Like, it's a very, obviously, like you said, touchy subject, and hard to kind of know where to depict and what to show. But I think, like I said, you're going into a biopic about Mayhem, you kind of expect it.
I expect, and it's justified, and it's not, the scene isn't there to be, look how dark and evil Mayhem is, and some of these overgrown children who are still obsessed with black metal wanted it to be. It couldn't be that.
Yeah,
it's
well,
a much
exactly.
better, intelligent movie. And like I said, I think this has largely been forgotten. I do not hear about it in any kind of positive context after the film came out. But I think this will be remembered because it's going to be at least a minor cult film just because it's about Mayhem.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think it will be remembered, and like metal people are gonna probably turn around to it and watch it again, quite a few years later on and stuff. So it will always have a little cult following, at least, I think.
You know, I've seen this, came out, I mean, 2016, 2017, thereabouts. Might be later, maybe 2018. What year did the movie we're talking about coming up? This is something I should look into.
2018,
2018. Like, I've seen it 4 times since then. I don't know if there's a film I've seen that much that only came out, 3 years ago, maybe 4 now, because we're coming to the end of this and it came out at the beginning of a year. But like,
yeah, I have one film. That's it.
It's really good, and I encourage people to watch it. And I'm really glad we got round to this in the podcast, because it's such an intelligent film, a lot of interesting subjects and history, really well done, and it really bears a lot more discussion than it had. I had thought of doing a video essay so long on my YouTube channel for it, and I never got round to it, so this is a good kind of way of doing it.
Yeah, it really is, because talking about this has to be long form as well, because there's just so much history and so much weird introspection and depth to talk about with it, and you'd have never thought that. Like,
it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, and the way themes can be more universally taken just about masculinity, or it can be a very specific deconstruction of a very specific scene and genre of music.
yeah, exactly, and it does it well from somebody who actually likes the music as well. It does it well, because at least, like, I am actually not in the scene, but I like the music. I listen to this kind of music and stuff. So I'm not just shitting on black metal in like in like a way. It's very clever how it talks about it as a genre and uses these people to talk about it as a genre.
Absolutely. Any more to say? Because I think that kind of covers final thoughts.
Yeah, I think we've kind of covered it all. This has been his longest episode
We
easily.
knew it.
So,
we knew it was going to be.
Yes, we did.
Yep, that's season 1 of the podcast. Ghana, how did you think it went, Dom?
Yeah, it was good. I hope people have enjoyed us talking about some fucked up stuff and some real good stuff and some real shit stuff.
I hope everyone watched at least one film we talked about, or we convinced someone to. I know we tricked a bunch of people into watching like Necromantic. I'm sorry.
Yes, and And I've told you about all the people at work that have talked about Antichrist since. So,
What's been your favourite episode we've done? I mean, to be honest, this is my favourite episode, but let's say other than this, because I'm going to guess this is yours too.
yeah, I think this. Loved the Possession one. Loved the Christiana F one quite a bit as well, actually.
That was a very different film to the other ones we've been talking about. So's this, in fairness.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's why I liked it so much as well. I mean, I enjoyed all of them. I think we did quite well.
I think it took a few episodes to get going, but I love the Possession one, the Devil's one, Necromantic. I had a lot of fun with Ricky O, because Ricky O is Ricky O, you know?
Yes. To be fair, the Necromantic one of us losing his minds is incredible. So
I was watching May Letz's Nick Spheres on YouTube's latest video, which is like a tier list of disturbing movies, and she puts Necromantic in the fucking wow category. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
I love that.
But
yeah, that's where I put it too.
Yeah, this is the end of season 1. We almost made it without any gaps in the schedule. Almost.
Yeah, my life is very full.
Oh God,
but
same.
I try.
We've been for kind of 2 weeks. We can't end on snuff. We have to do this, and we have to work out when we're gonna do it, because it's this has got to be how we end it. We've wanted to do this since the start. When we first talked about the podcast, this was high up on the list. We will do a season 2. I don't know when.
We will return.
You'll be waiting a couple months. I mean, more than a couple. You'll probably be waiting a few months, but we will do it. We're going to make up a backlog again so we don't end up missing a week like happened this week.
Exactly. We've already got it all planned out, so don't worry. We will return, and you will see us again.
Be a bit more some of the staples of the genre. I mean, we haven't worked out what exactly we're going to do, but audition, Salo, all that stuff. We will cover more of that. We'll also pick some more weird and out there ones like this. I've heard rumors that this sort of podcast has gained a minor following outside of our group of friends. So if anyone's listening, I mean, thank you to all our friends. You're amazing and awesome, and I've loved talking to you after the podcast about the podcast we've done. You guys fucking rock. But to anyone who doesn't know us in real life, thank you. I'm flattered.
Yes. Thank you very much. Don't know how you found us idiots, but I love it.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and I've liked talking about this genre of movies, which normally gets put in sort of a top 10 list and is left, and people don't take them seriously. I've liked diving in depth about them, and I think I like talking about the morality of art, and I like talking thematically what making films this dark and this, messed up, how they can actually benefit as well as detract from the film itself.
Yeah, exactly. It's been incredibly fun. And I mean, me and Sterny have always just talked about films like this anyway, so it just made so much sense to just be like, you know what, let's let other people listen to it too.
I really wish I thought of this at March last year when lockdown happened, because I kind of thought about it just as everything was opening up in this country, at least for now, fingers crossed. But yeah, there's so many films out there which we just talk about at length. We must have talked, Lords of Chaos especially. I remember walking home from the cinema from that, and that's like a 30-minute walk, and we, instant wanting to talk about the film instantly.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys could see the list of films we have
that
we want to talk about, long. This podcast is never going to end, so we will keep going.
We'll be fucking 50, 60, and we'll still be doing this.
Yep. But yeah, it's been very fun, and I need to go watch my brother get married, so...
Yeah, congratulations. Thank you all for listening. We will be back. I don't know when. I'll keep you all updated. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing, as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.